All right. Welcome to the show, Dr. Matt Jane Crayton. Welcome to the channel. Glad to have you.
Thank you. Glad
All
to be here.
right. So, you ready for the questions? You ready?
Sure, let's do it.
I already know you because I'm married to you, but the audience might not know who you are. So, um, let's talk a little bit. So, let's begin with this question. Tell me what it was like growing up in Nigeria.
Um, in terms of education, well, I had a really
No, like not education, more like what was your childhood life like? What was your home life like? What was it like? Was it rough? Was it a struggle? Was it you happy? Tell me a little bit about.
Well, I had a very happy childhood. I'm from a home of educators. So my mom is a teacher. She's still a principal of a school. And so my dad was an accountant, and he navigated his way up and started his own business. So we lived in a very close knit family, full of love. It was a lot of family time. We had dinner together, we had breakfast together, and if it's not a school day, we had lunch together. And it was a very close knit family. We were not allowed to go outside and play with other kids at the time. It looked like it was a hard life because we'll look out through the window and see all the kids out there playing soccer or just playing games, and we couldn't. But for us, with me and my siblings, we had to form a very close knit relationship that allowed us to play with each other, create ideas, create games in the house. So that was my childhood. That was pretty much it. I was very protected. Obviously, we were yeah, we had a very small family.
So, would you say uh as a childhood you fit in the wealthy class, the middle class, or
Mm.
you say did you say that you went to private school or something like that?
Yes, we did. We went to private school, but I would say this: we were not rich in the classification of like, hey, they're rich or they're wealthy, whatever that means. But my parents made sure that even if it meant they're using their last penny to put us in very good environment, they were willing to do that. And I saw my parents work very hard to make sure that we went to the best schools that they could afford, that we had the best things that they could afford, from clothes to water bottle. I remember this very expensive water bottle that I wanted. Um, and I cried because all the cool kids in the school had it. And I remember the day that my sister and I finally got that water bottle. It was just a joy. I had the orange color and she had the green color. It was really, really happy for me. So I wouldn't necessarily say that, by actually not even necessary, like we were not rich, period. But my parents were very intentional and how they trained us and providing for us and making sure that we had the things that were important and that were necessary. We were clothed, we were fed, and we didn't for once think that we didn't have or we were lacking, even when we didn't. It's just not looking back in retrospect. I can see moments growing up. I can say, oh yeah, we definitely were broke then. My parents were probably broke then, but growing up, I never saw that. It was really cool that we got to experience life from that naive point of view and just have a happy childhood.
Okay, okay. All right. So next question I want to ask you is, when did you know you wanted to leave Nigeria?
Oh, that's a great question. I've known all my life that I was gonna do something amazing. As a little girl, I would stand in front of the mirror and mimic speaking to thousands of people, and I would just feel like I was going to be on stage one day. I was going to be famous. I used to say that one day I wanted Mac Jan to be a household name that you will remember and talk about and think about. Now I don't know to what extent that meant or what how that was gonna happen or what steps I needed to take to get there. But I just knew that there was something about my name and that God had purpose for my lives, even as a little girl. And I knew I loved to teach, so I knew that teaching was going to be a huge part of my life. So the moment I realized that I needed to leave the country was right after my college and right after I had just completed a national youth service. So in Nigeria, you're required to do this 1 year military service where you serve your country. Right after that period, I just had this um, a desperation to leave the country. It just wasn't fulfilling. There were a lot of things I was trying to accomplish that I felt like was I was way ahead of my time. I had published my first book. I wanted to start a TV company, and I just felt like I didn't have the resources, and I just kind of felt trapped. And so that was when I started making efforts to, go ahead and get my master's degree and just kind of get myself out of that and get myself propel myself into the future that I saw for myself. So I think maybe that would be the pivotal point that I can say for sure that yes, that was the moment I prayed, I fasted, and I said, God, you got to get me out of this country, and help me to be in fullness where what you want me to be. So I think maybe that can be a season that I would say was pivotal in that jump or that making that move to leave.
Okay, so what made you choose when you moved? What made you choose Alabama?
I did not choose Alabama. Alabama chose me. And this is why I say that. Um, when I started applying for different schools, my mom introduced me to this educational consultant who was had a list of schools that they recommended applying to. So Troy University in Alabama was one of the ones that he recommended and applied to. I had no idea where Troy was. I wasn't actually interested, but out of respect for my mom's friend, I said sure, whatever. I applied. I had also applied to other schools. Not just I applied to a school in Michigan as well and other countries, and my heart really wanted to go to UK. I wanted to go to a university in London, and so that was my heart. That was where I wanted to go. That was my direction. And so when I got admission into the University of UK, I didn't even bother to look at other admission offer letters that I got from other schools because I was so focused. I thought that was where God wanted me to go. And so when I had a conversation with this a lawyer and a woman, a mentor that I had looked up to, I was part of a TV show and I was the media manager, so I was working her to her car. She had looked at me and said, "Hey, what are you doing with your life? You don't look like you fit right here. Like there has to be more to you." And I said that I began to share with her. I said, "Actually, I just got offer letters to go to school abroad, so I'm going to be leaving." And she said, "Where?" And I told her my story, and she looked at me and said, "Hey, are you crazy? How is it that you got an admission to go to school in the United States of America and you're choosing other countries over that? You have to go to America." And I looked at her and said, "Why?" She said, "Because I believe if you go to America, your wings you can fly." And I said, okay. So I took her advice and I picked up the offer letter from Troy University. I dusted it up from the pile that I had thrown in. In fact, I didn't even bother opening it. And then I had opened it up and I had talked to my parents, and everybody was happy that I had decided to make that decision, that choice to go to Troy University. And that happens to be one of the best decisions of my life. I'm so glad that I took the direction.
All right. So while in Troy, how did you meet your husband?
Uh, well, he has his own version of the story. I have my version of the story, so you get to hear the version today. Um, he well, I met him at the international tailgate during the my very first football game, in America. First of all, I had no clue what football is. I'm still trying to understand the game. And so I was at the tailgate being Mac Jane, making videos and just walking around and trying to make new friends, being that I was brand new in the country. I don't even think I've been in the country about a year. I mean, about a month. When I met him. So I was just going around making videos and I got to him and I said, "Hey, what country are you from?" And he said, "Jackson's Gap." And I looked at him like, okay, whatever. Jackson's Gap is not a country. But anyway, long story short, we happened to be in the same vicinity to watch the game because his friends had invited him, and we're all friends now. And so we watched the game and played the game. I mean, not played the game, watched the game. I didn't understand it, but I just did what everybody else did. Touchdown! I said touchdown and whatnot. And so that began the friendship. Really, I'm not gonna tell the details of how we connected, but we connected, and yeah, we are we became friends.
Okay. All right. So the next question that I have is, do you still want to be the first female president of Nigeria?
Some days yes, some days no. And the reason is I do see a need and for change in my country, Nigeria. I believe that with the right leadership, especially a woman in leadership, a lot of the things that are wrong, that are going crazy in my country, and I say my country because I still have um, a heart for the people there. And I do have a heart for the educational system. I do have a heart for the women population and women in business. I do see potential and resources, and we have so many smart, intelligent, innovative people in Nigeria. And so when I say my country, yes, and those are the things that some days when I look and I see what can be done, I am pushed and nudged to say maybe I can make a difference, maybe I can go back home one day and help make effect change and influence our country and push us in a different direction towards the greatness that I believe Nigeria can be. And then there are days when I look around and I like, no, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with the politics. I'm a Christian. I love Jesus, and I just think it's gonna be difficult. I think it's hard to be in such leadership position without compromising. So if you have ideas of how I can be a leader, an effective leader that God has called me to, without compromising in politics, you let me know. I think that's kind of where I am. So that's where it is. So yeah.
Okay. Recently, you got your PhD. As a lot, as you know, in America, a lot of kids have a lot of student loans,
Hmm.
but you got your PhD with no student loan. So the question I would say is, how did you get your PhD with no student loans?
Whew, that's a big one. To be honest with you, I never even considered student loans. I don't know if it's my Nigerian mindset or just being naive and just having that hustle mentality coming into this country, like I'm gonna make it regardless. I don't care what happens, I'm gonna make it. So student loans was not an option for me. I wasn't thinking that. I was thinking grants, I was thinking scholarships, I was thinking how can I go from A to B without without being in debt. Okay. And so because of that mindset, everything that I did, from applications to connecting with people to decisions that I made about my life, were around that, because I saw how, when I first came in this country as an international student, I know how difficult it was for my parents to pay that large sum of tuition, large sum of money. It was a lot of money. I'm not gonna lie, especially when you convert from naira to dollars. Yeah, it was crazy. And so and so that I was determined by my second year in during my master's program that I was gonna go to school for free, and that's what I did. I applied myself. I applied to every job possible, every scholarship available. I mean, I did the craziest thing. I even wrote to the chancellor of the university and said, "Hey, I need scholarship." That was how desperate I was. And I did get a scholarship for Troy University. And seeing that how hard work pays off, I told myself for my PhD, I'm gonna apply the same formula. Apply to every scholarship possible, talk to everybody that I knew, and God just favored me, honestly, for my PhD program and connected me to the right people. I was just at the right place at the right time, speaking to the right person. And that led to a job offer. That was able to cover, and part of the agreement, or part of being a graduate assistant, is you get your tuition paid, and why you work part-time for the department. And so I was able to do that and go to school for free, and without the headache of worrying about where, if I had money to pay tuition next semester or anything. I had done that in my first year here in America during my master's program. I didn't know how hard it was. It was painful. It was a painful process. Not to worry so much about tuition. So I made up my mind, and I prayed, and I said, God, I wasn't going to do that. I was going to go for to get my PhD and not have to worry about tuition. And that's really exactly what God did. Connect me to the right people. Applying myself, I applied for those jobs. I applied for every scholarship you can think of. I did not, sit back and say, okay, God, you do it. I did apply myself, and I prayed, and God just aligned things in time, for that to happen. And yeah, I was able to go to school 100% debt free. And that's a great feeling, not to have debt.
All right. That's a wrap. That's a wrap for Dr. Matt Jane Crayton. Thank you for coming by.
Thank you. It was great.
All
Thanks.
right.
Great questions you asked.
All right. Take care.